The funding for this video is provided by the amazing members of my Patreon. Also contributions from viewers like you. Thank you. Yeah, I started from PBS Kids. What you gonna do? Fight me? Anyway, roll the video. Okay, so we need to have a little disclaimer before I go into today's video, because today's video is on something that is very, very, very different from a lot of what I talk about here on my channel. On my channel, I usually talk about shows that are for like a general audience, a family audience, or if I don't talk about something for like a family audience, it's usually in defense of animation for adults and whatnot. That's really just kind of like my niche, mainly talking about family entertainment shows and things from the past, I'd say, like before like 2015, I'd say, because there is a drastic difference after that decade. Sometimes I come on here and I talk about things that are completely different from, like, you know, my niche, and y'all know, you're pretty familiar with my work. You guys know that I often talk about Sam Levinson and whatnot, so let's just take this as, you know, one of those videos. One of the videos where I occasionally talk about something that is completely out of bounds when it comes to my niche. I feel like this is a bit relevant because this was a book that was written in the 90s and it takes place in the 90s, and it was adapted into a movie that needs a lot of work. But towards the end of this video, I do have some defenses for it, because I do think this story would work pretty well as like an adult animated series, because adult animation, Western adult animation specifically, needs a lot of work, especially when it comes to telling stories about Black women, because they fail horribly there. I like to read. A lot of y'all are like pretty familiar that I do like to read books, and a lot of you guys really do like it when I make content about books and whatnot, and I read a large variety of different books. People think that I really only read like one kind of book, like books for like people of all ages, and no, baby, no, I be reading grown shit. That's the stuff I'm really like gravitating towards. I am gonna post like more book related content on my blog, on my website, because I'm gonna do the top 10 best books I read this year and the top 10 worst books I read this year. Luster by Raven Leilani is in the worst category. Fucking hated that book. But yeah, this is just, see, this is me making more videos about books, so yeah. And it's a book from the 90s, so I feel like it kind of counts as nostalgic, because I was reading this book and I was like, oh yeah, you can tell this was the 90s. Also, another quick disclaimer note to put in here is that part of the reason why I decided to go with talking about Addicted by Zane for this video is because I actually had another video planned called about the last season of Hi Hi Puffy I'm a You, because that shit was ghetto as hell and I wanted to talk about it, but it was going to be a long video. It was going to be a deep dive. I was going to dress up and everything like that. And for the rest of November, after this week, I'm just going to be posting Nickelodeon content, because I decided I want to do a Nick November series. And then y'all already know, if you're familiar with my channel, Disney December, that's just December. And then next thing you know, next year I'll come back with my regularly scheduled content. So I did want to get a few more regular videos out before I go into the Nickelodeon ones, and then I go into the Disney ones, and that's that. So I hope you guys enjoy. This one is going to be a bit different from a lot, but they still talk about a lot of the elements and things that I talk about on my channel in general, because we are going to be talking about whitewashing, we're going to be talking about colorism, bad writing, a lot of that shit. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video. Hey y'all, it's Harriana and I'm back with another video. Hi, hello, how are you guys doing? My name is Harriana and welcome back to the pirate ship, also known as Harry Hook's pirate ship. I'm the captain, you are not my first mate, and I'm not the first mate because you want to know why? Bring your ear closer to the speaker so you can hear me clearly. Nobody's worthy of being the first mate. But hi, hello, how are you doing? My name is Harriana and I like to make content based off nostalgia and family and children's entertainment and all the issues that I find within those spaces. Now, just some A little housekeeping stuff before we go on with today's video, because I don't know, I've been trying to like not show how I'm feeling right now, and I told myself to take care of like work and whatnot to take my mind off of it. But to everybody that reached out to me about my friend's passing, Tashana, a lot of y'all are familiar with her. If you see my website, she did a lot of the photography that's on my website of me like in the pirate outfit. If you guys have seen a lot of my cosplay and stuff like that, she has done the photography for that. Very talented person, love her, adore her. She is no longer with us, and I came to tell you guys because y'all have seen her work. You guys have seen her on my channel. I literally casted her to play Freddie in the Progenies. I love her. I adore her. It's been really, really rough, but I do need to get my job done. A lot of you guys are telling me to take a break and come back when I'm ready and whatnot. And while I can't say that I'm ready to be back, I have no choice but to, because if I don't post content, I'm not gonna get paid. And that's the like frustrating thing about grief, is that if you don't work, you don't make, you can't make a living. You can't support yourself. Even though we may be sad and hurting on the inside, life still goes on. So yeah, these bills need to be paid. I cannot afford not to post anything this month or for the rest of the year or so. Yeah. Let's go ahead and get into today's video. Today's video, I'm just going to be talking about why I think the Addicted movie did not fucking work. Okay, it worked to a certain extent, but like for the most part, it didn't work. And part of the reason, let's go ahead and take it back to when I was about 15, 16 years old and had no business watching that damn movie in the first place. I didn't hate the movie, but I knew it could have been better. But now that I actually have read the source material that the book was adapted into, oh, I have a lot of shit to say. I have so much shit to say. And as I mentioned, like in the disclaimer, this video is going to be very, very different from a lot of the stuff that I talk about here on my channel. But just know that there's going to be a lot of censoring in this video. Lots and lots of censoring, simply because, like I said, you took my job. I need the AdSense. So if there's things that you feel like I did not say completely or whatnot, yeah, because I need to, let's go ahead and get to it. So what exactly is Addicted? Okay, before we can get into Addicted, is you guys need to know who Zane is. Zane is an author, I say, that is pretty well known when it comes to the Black community, specifically the African American community, because her books was always running around. I remember when I was in like middle and high school, there would be a lot of people reading her books, and I would like peek at them, and I'll be like, oh, I ain't supposed to be reading this, but I still looked at it anyway. But Zane is an author that writes erotic literature about Black women, usually Black women that are pretty well off for the most part. Those are like the types of stories that she gravitates towards writing. And Addicted is one of her most well-known books. The book is about a woman named Zoe who has an addiction to you'll figure it out. Okay, so I have some notes right here on my phone that I had jotted down, as I want this video to be like very unscripted, because I need to get something posted and I need something that was not going to be so much taxing on me. Okay, so the best way for me to describe Addicted would have to be, it is reverse Black woman harem. Yeah, that's like the best way to put it, because I'm really trying not to get this video demonetized, because I can't do a yellow dollar sign right now. I'm going through a nut right now. But Addicted follows the story of a woman named Zoe. And at the beginning of the story, the first part, we get to know a little bit more about her history and whatnot. Let me mute that. So like for the first part of this book, we get to know who Zoe is. We get to learn about her husband, who was her boyfriend at the time before she married him. We know a little bit about their little puppy love story of them falling in love and getting together and all that, yada yada yada. So she has a husband named Jason. He's like an architect or some shit. I don't know, I didn't really care about his job. Just know that he makes a good amount of money. Mind you that this is the 90s, I know shit changes and whatnot. And Zoe runs a successful art business where she reaches out to artists, specifically those that are African American, and helps them get their work pushed out, yada yada yada. I really love the kind of job that she had. It really like made me like her character a lot more. They have 3 kids together. They have this nice big ass beautiful house. And yeah, by the way, the story takes place in Atlanta. My city always going out bad. But anyways, that is just like the gist of them, and they look like a big happy family on the outside, but on the inside, no. So we get to learn a little bit more about Zoe, not Joey. Why? That is their ship name. Jason, Zoe. Anyway, get back on topic, girl. And we find out that Zoe isn't necessarily happy with everything that is going on with her and Jason's marriage. That being, she's very much unsatisfied. And because of that unsatisfaction that she has, she starts sleeping around with other people. And we get to learn a little bit more about these other people later, but next thing you know, we get to learn that throughout this story, she is going and seeing a psychiatrist. Mind you that this is the 90s, and it was seen as more taboo back then to actually go and seek help for a lot of the problems that people are having. Because she tells her husband about how she met a psychiatrist, and he isn't the nicest about it. It's very much like ableist behavior, but the way it was handled, I say, was done pretty well, because it just shows to show you how ignorant a lot of people are when it comes to the subject of therapy and whatnot. So moving forward, as the story goes on, we get to learn more and more and more about the people that are involved with Zoe's life, and then we end up meeting the first man that she cheats on her husband with, named Quentin. Quentin is an artist. He likes to make murals and stuff like that. Very talented man for the most part, and that is part of the reason why Zoe was drawn to him, on top of the fact that she thought he looked good. And Quentin, basically, he wanted her just as much as she wanted him. Basically, her and Quentin, dang, I can't go into detail. They hook up, she feels guilty, but then she goes back home, her husband's upsetting her, and she keeps running back to Quentin over and over and over again. So that is like the first person that we meet that Zoe has been fooling around with. So aside from Zoe dealing with the stuff with Quentin and things not going well with her husband, and mind you, her husband was saying a lot of slut-shamey shit. He was spreading slut shame rhetoric. It was actually pissing me off when I was reading that. But anyway, we end up meeting Zoe's best friend named Brina. And Brina is somebody that she grew up with, but here we get to learn a little bit more about Brina, and we find out that she is involved in YouTube censors. She is involved in a relationship where the man is brutalizing her. And Zoe desperately wants to help her. She offers her a job, offers her to be like, you know, you can be my assistant. Put a note on that because that's important. We're going to bring this shit back up. But Brina is like, no, we're not doing that, yada, yada, yada. She basically doesn't want it to feel like she's using Zoe, but Zoe desperately like wants to help her get away from this man. And it's sad because that man is basically living in her apartment with her. So yeah, that's the shit that we have going on with Brina. Zoe is still fooling around with Quentin. She is neglecting her business and whatnot simply because yeah. Let's just say she's addicted. She's addicted. And mind you that she already was addicted before she met Quentin, because she oh damn, how we going? She had toys, and her husband didn't know about them. Jason realizes that Zoe is very like stressed out, and he's like, yeah, why don't you go to the club with Brina? So Zoe and Brina go to the club. Brina just doing whatever at the club. Y'all know how it be when you go to the club with your friend. They just go off and do something and you just be like, okay. And that is where Zoe ends up meeting another man named Tyson. Now, this dude is like the complete opposite of Quentin. Mind you, all of the people that she is messing around with, and it's only 3, are quite different from her husband in terms of like behavior and whatnot. But yeah, Tyson is very different. She meets up with him, hooks up with him, and it's part of the reason has to do with the fact that she was just kind of getting tired of Quentin's bullshit. Mind you, if this stuff sounds like really like out the ass, I hope you guys know that this is an urban novel, and this is all the urban tropes are in here. Long story short, Tyson and Zoe hook up, and then we are cutting back to the psychiatrist, and she's talking about who knows what with her and whatnot, talking about her problems, opening up with her, yada yada yada. Zoe starts arguing with the lady. The lady's just like, Zoe, I just want to help you, you know, that kind of stuff. And then next thing you know, she was like, Zoe, wait a minute, you told me that there were 3 people that you were seeing behind your husband's back. Who's the third one? But Zoe is a bit ashamed, I'd say, to admit who that third person is, and the reason why has to be is that she was also cheating on her husband with a woman. Let me tell you, the biphobia and homophobia was on 10 in this book. Then again, it was written in 1998. So the third person that Zoe was sleeping around with was a woman named Diamond. And Diamond was somebody that lived like in the same apartment complex as Quentin. And what made Zoe want to stop seeing Quentin in the first place is because she caught Quentin and Diamond together. And I was like, girl, you cheating on your husband. But anyway, she called them together, and that's when she realized she wanted to end things. And Diamond is very, you know, this bisexual ballerina woman, and she basically was like, Zoe, if you interested in me, we can, yeah, that's just how to go. Very like biphobic behavior. Listen, I understand that Zayn is not perfect or anything like that. Black writers make mistakes all the time, yada yada yada. This book is a product of its time, but the biphobia in so much of this black literature makes me so mad. Because this book villainized the fuck out of Diamond. Put a note on that, we're going to bring that back later. So moving forward, we find out that Tyson is basically involved with like gang activity. Quentin literally is not the person you want to be around, so she decides to like, you know, cut things off. Quentin's not taking it well that Zoe don't want to be with him no more. He basically was trying to get Zoe to leave her husband for him, her kids and all that. She basically went ahead and already cut off shit with Diamond because she was like, no. And then Tyson just kind of like kept bothering her and like kept harassing her and whatnot. Long story short, her husband finds out about the affairs, but Zoe ends up getting like in an accident and she was like knocked unconscious for a while. Knocked unconscious, but also before this, Zoe was already very distraught because guess what? Brina's boyfriend, you know, the one that was beating her ass, yeah, he K-worded her. So yeah, she is going through it. She know her husband. She don't know what to do about this addiction. She wants to end all the relationship. She wants to fix everything going on, but it's just too much for her. She ends up getting in an accident. She's knocked unconscious. Next thing you know, the book goes back to her actually going to get help with this addiction and trying to figure out what was like the start of all this. We find out that she was SA'd when she was younger, and that part of the book was very triggering for me. So once they figured that out, she opens up to her boyfriend about like, you know, not boyfriend, that's her husband. She opens up to her husband about how like so much of like the rhetoric he would like say and shit like that was very slut shaming, very whorephobic for the most part, because we find out that her husband's whorephobic because part of the reason he acted the way he do is because his biological mother was a prostitute. And yeah, he became very whorephobic because of that, because she wasn't taking care of him, yada yada yada. Remember, this was an urban book written in the 90s, so things are not going to be perfect. Zoe finishes up with therapy. She goes back to work. She goes back to Atlanta. Tyson basically is a hot mess, yada yada yada. Fast forward to the shit later on. Diamond's still a mess. Diamond actually came to the hospital to check up on Zoe, and then the story still fucking villainized her. Anyway, but then next thing you know, we find out that Quentin has K-worded Tyson and Diamond. Basically, Quentin is a very dangerous person because we find out he ends up K-wording like his family too. And we find out all that shit about Quentin, and then the book ends with Zoe is still going to therapy to, you know, about her addiction. And that is literally the book of Addicted. It sounds like a hot ass mess, and guess what? I loved it. I ate it up. That shit was messy as hell, but I loved it. It kept me entertained. I will tell you, I enjoyed it much more than Luster by Raven Leilani. I'm sorry, that has to be the worst book I've ever read all year. I hated it so much. But while Addicted is not a perfect story, it's a pretty interesting one, and it's a pretty decent one, and it talks on the subject of whorephobia. It talks about the subject of SA, but also the story does have issues with ableism, lots of ableism just thrown around here. Sometimes it's handled well, sometimes it's handled terribly, but then it also has issues with homophobia and biphobia just as well. It is in no way, shape, or form a perfect novel. Now let's move on to the movie adaptation of it. So in 2014, there was a movie that was released as an adaptation of the book Addicted. And let me tell y'all, like I said, I watched the movie first back then around the time when it came out, but then later on, a few weeks ago, I read the book, and you know, there's a lot of issues here, and I will go into detail about why I don't think this shit worked. Because first of all, the book took place over like months. It took place over a fucking while, okay? It even started when she was young and then it went on to adulthood and whatnot. There was just too much meat in this book for this movie to only be like only 100 minutes long. There was just too much stuff to talk about, okay? And that's one thing a lot of people don't seem to get, where I say not everything needs a movie, but sometimes a lot of these things that don't need movies need TV show adaptations or miniseries. That is so the book will get the story that it deserves. This movie needed to be longer. That's the main problem. It was too fucking short. And I know a lot of people were complaining about the text scenes, that's what we're gonna call them in this film. That was not even my issue with it. I personally didn't care. The issue with it was because they changed so much of the book to like little shit that was like, for what reason did you need to do that? So as I mentioned, the main issue with the film has to be with timing. If you guys heard everything that I told you about what happened in the book, you will see why this could not be condensed down to 100 minutes. It just didn't work. Because it felt like right when we were starting to get to know her or starting to get a grasp of the situation that was going on, the movie ended up moving to something else and everything just kind of went on too fast. And we were also getting a hard understanding of pretty much a lot of these characters. Listen, the movie's main focus is Zoe, as she is the main character. But also the movie did not do a good job of focusing on the other characters too, because if you read the book, you realize how much more important they are to the story. So before we actually get into more of the problems with the story on why they didn't work with Addicted, we have to talk about this entire casting situation, because there is a big fat ass problem with two of the people that were cast in this film. Two of the main most prominent characters in this movie were miscast, and we need to have a talk about it. Zoe is played by Sharon Lill, and if you are familiar with Black cinema, you may be familiar with her. She was in Dreamgirl, she was in This Christmas, she was in Soul Band, she was in both Why Did I Get Married, and Garrett was played by William Levi. Levy? Hold on. He's not all that well known to American audiences, but he was pretty big on Telemundo. Now, what exactly is the problem with both of these characters? Garrett is black in the book, so let's go ahead and get that fucking straight. Hi, live from the editing room right now. So quick little disclaimer. For some reason, I started calling Quentin Garrett for some reason, and that had to do with the fact that I wrote these notes like at 4 o'clock in the morning when I was really, really distraught, crying and shit. I've been going through it. And for some reason, I wrote Garrett down. I don't know why I started calling this man Garrett, but his name is Quentin. So you guys hear me calling this man Garrett, I'm talking about Quentin. I deeply apologize for this. And yeah, let's continue on with the video. And his casting made me mad. I was confused, but I think I understand the reason why they changed him. Addicted is a book I'd say had no white people in it. Like, this was a black ass story, and if anybody ever been to Atlanta, you see that it's black as hell here. Addicted is black as hell. I'm pretty sure there were no main characters in this shit that was white. There were like probably like biracial people in here. I don't fucking know, but that man was black. He was an African American artist. Okay, and that shit just pisses me off though, because they made him into like this white Latino man that was like very artistic and whatnot. And even though Garrett's character is like a horrible fucking person, it would have been nice to see a character that is a black man that loves painting and loves art overall. That would have been great to see, because that's not something that we often see, especially at that time in our media, artistic black men. Okay, so that is the issue with Garrett's casting. We need to talk about Zoe's casting, because Zoe is also miscast just as well. As we know, Hollywood often casts biracial women to play black women oftentimes in work. Zoe is a black woman. It is not stated anywhere that she is Blasian. Sharon Lill is a Blasian woman. She is half Filipina, she is half black. I don't think that she should have been playing Zoe. As we see that her mother in the film is black, but also it was pretty clear in the book that Zoe was not mixed, she was black. This right here is just very disappointing but not surprising. It's Hollywood. Hollywood has a lot of issues when it comes to the way they view blackness, especially when it comes to black women and whatnot. Lots of colorism, lots of featureism and shit like that. They are often casting biracial women that can pass for black or lean more towards their black side to play black roles. And yeah, Zoe was a black woman. She was not Blasian whatsoever in that book. So moving forward, this is another issue with the movie. We see that Brina is in the film, remember that Brina died? Brina isn't even, like, she doesn't even really have her own storyline here, because in the book, Brina was dealing with her, you know, boyfriend that was brutalizing her. And, you know, she ended up dying midway through the book, and then yeah, that's pretty much Brina's fate. It's actually really sad, and it's actually really fucking tragic. Brina is changed to be Zoe's assistant here, and I'm like, and also, I feel really irritated with the way this movie handled Brina in the first place, because as I mentioned, that Zoe was played by, you know, a biracial woman, a Blasian woman. She is lighter than Brina. She looks different than Brina. And it was just like a bit colorism that plays into that shit too, as Zoe is seen as this hot and desirable woman, and Brina's just like, okay, she's just her little assistant, she's just her little friend. And that shit bothers me so much when I'm watching like a lot of black media, where they'll have this one character that's presented as hot and attractive and this and that and the third, and then their friend who is darker than them or bigger than them and whatnot, they're just kind of like, they're on the side and not really necessarily seen as desirable as such. It was frustrating, but it was also just kind of irritating, because I was like, for what reason did we need to take out Brina's entire storyline? Because it honestly played a big part into why Zoe was kind of losing it, I'd say. But part of the reason why Zoe felt like she couldn't keep it together, part of that had to do with the fact that Brina had died. Okay, what else did this funky movie change? Also, I really don't like the way the movie handled like her and her husband, I'd say, because listen, her husband in the movie forgave her all the way at the end for everything that she did with cheating on him and whatnot. But the movie high-key paints Zoe out to be this really, really awful, horrible person. And that's something that really bothered me, because it made me think that the people missed the point of Zoe for the most part. This is much more than a story about a woman that cheats on her husband. This is a story about a woman that has an addiction and she needs help. The book didn't necessarily villainize Zoe, I'd say, and that part has to do with the fact that it was written by a woman, and I know part of the screenplay was written by a woman too, but the movie was given very much male gaze. In the book, we find out that after that, Jason was really angry with Zoe, which I get it. It makes sense because she cheated. But then when he learned a little bit more about what was going on with her and whatnot, and he realized that he was in the wrong too for not listening to her or whatever, he starts to come around and he does a lot better with her. He also does go to therapy with her. He goes to try to help her figure out what was wrong, what was going on. The thing with her husband was handled much, much better in the book. The movie just made him very frustrating, and I didn't really like him all that much. I mean, I didn't really like him all that much in the book, but I like the fact that he was angry with Zoe, but after he calmed down and realized what the issue was, he realized that she didn't cheat on him simply for the fact that she just wanted to be spiteful. She was cheating simply because there was a problem in their relationship and he wasn't fucking listening to her. Also, I would like to say that the movie handled the entire situation with Zoe and Jason poorly, in my opinion, because let me tell you, while the subject of cheating is something that we do need to talk about a little bit more, the way the subject of cheating was handled in the movie was completely different than how it was handled in the book. Because in the fucking movie, it didn't even feel like he tried to get an understanding on why she did what she did. But in the book, you know, after the entire accident happened, she basically was like fighting for her life here at the moment. Zoe was freaking half dead. Here we go. When he started to learn a little bit more about what was actually wrong with her and her having this addiction, he wanted to help her work through that. In the movie, it is like they made Zoe work through this shit on her own. And it was like, yeah, you cheated. You did this horrible fucking thing to your husband and you don't deserve his help whatsoever. But also, we have to take into consideration that her husband is part of the reason why she cheated in general. The situation with Zoe and Jason is much more nuanced than how this movie handled it, and that is something that the screenwriters failed this story. Like, one of the most crucial factors of Addicted has to do with the fact that we need to learn a little bit more about why Jason is so fucking whorephobic in the first place. We don't exactly learn why Jason is whorephobic in the first place, but whorephobia is more so like the shaming of, you know, sex workers, strippers, you know, anything like that. But within the book, Jason was constantly saying really disgusting things about certain sexual activities because he was like, oh, that's what hoes do. This is what hoes do. Yada, yada, yada.
We didn't even really get to touch on that with the film. It felt like everything was just put on Zoe and that it was all her fault. And it just ended up becoming very misogynistic. It became extremely misogynistic because it was just acting as if everything was Zoe's fault with this relationship, and absolutely fucking not.
The movie just like villainized Zoe way too much with the entire situation with her and Quentin. Also, Diamond was in the movie. She wasn't all that important. I say, like, she was messing around with Quentin, but like Diamond was just there. She was played by Kat Graham, who fine as hell, but like, And then also the moment where we found out about Zoe's trauma was not handled well in the movie and went by too fast. But also that, oh god, I'm really against grape scenes in films. It was not handled well at all. And yeah, that is Addicted, the film. A movie that needed a lot of work and made a lot of out of the ass unnecessary changes that ended up ruining the story. Now, here's the part where I want to get into how we can fix Addicted, the adaptation. For one, the casting's already fucked up, so let's just go ahead and throw it away. Throw the whole movie away. And mind you, this is coming from somebody that actually liked the movie. Throw it away. No, we need a redo for this story. And guess what? I think this story would be handled pretty well if it was animated. Like an animated series. Here we are, walk with me. Come on, walk with me. So on my channel, I have been talking a lot about the subject of black women in Western animation and basically how Western animation treats us like shit. We have been getting more and more stuff in the recent years, but overall, there is still a lot of work to be done and we have a long way to go. That being said, black women are not allowed to have complex stories, I'd say, in our media, and if they do, they're handled very, very poorly. I'm looking at Penny from Miraculous Ladybug right here. They could have hit her story so much better.
Hey y'all, to basically back up my claim right here about why I said I think this would work better like as a comic or cartoon, I highly recommend giving the book Wash Day Diaries a read. I talk about this book every so often on my channel, mainly because I really do want people to go and read it, mainly because it goes to show you that we black women and feminine presenting people, we can have like slice of life stories and comics and in animation and just drawings in general. We can have these stories and they sell. And a lot of these stories that the company that created Wash Day Diaries has made, that being Black Josei Press. And you guys know what Josei means. Josei basically is the manga demographic for adult women. They are like, so much of their stories focus so much on just being a black woman or being a black feminine presenting person or being a feminine presenting person of color. They are black and Latino owned. I love these people. I really do like them, and I highly do recommend you guys give their stuff a read. Make sure you check out their website and donate if you can, because black women often feel invisible when it comes to this space, and that being just the space of drawings and moving pictures and whatnot. We don't feel like we belong, mainly because people don't make things for us, so we started making our own things. And just talking about stuff like this really matters, and it just goes to show you that there are people out here that do care about black women's stories in animation, and they should be told more. And when I say told more, they should be pushed more towards the front of the story.
But I think Addicted would work pretty well as an animated series. Listen, another reason that I had a problem with that fucking movie, the book took place in the 90s. I'm sorry, but that 90s aesthetic is literally what made the book so great. It took away that 90s aesthetic and made it modern day, and it just kind of made everything I get bland, I'd say, especially because at the time of when the movie was filmed, I'd say like 2013, 2014, there wasn't necessarily a kind of set style, I'd say then. It was just pretty bland. The movie did look beautiful, but it was pretty bland for the most part. I think keeping it in the 90s would have made it much more exciting. We could have saw like a 90s nightclub. We could have had the 90s music. We could have had the 90s fashion. It would eat. And listen, as somebody who loves watching 90s cartoons, as someone that loves 90s anime simply for the way it looks, an Addicted TV show that actually takes place in the 90s and is animated would eat already right there. But then again, like I said, black women are allowed to have range when it comes to cartoons and media and all that shit. And oftentimes when we see black women in animation and whatnot, it's usually like superhero stuff or whatnot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we are allowed to have range. We usually are like the mothers or the teachers in a lot of these series. Or we're just like, you know, we get something short and it ends and we don't really get much of anything from that. Animation for black women needs a lot of work, and I think a story like this is something that would be very interesting to see. And I really could see this kind of animated series being on HBO. Even though HBO fucks over their shows all the time, especially their animated series, this really could work well as like an HBO animated show. And this isn't necessarily about all of the text scenes within it and whatnot. I think Addicted is strong enough as a story on its own without all of that. Because I'm gonna be honest, when I was reading the book, I was getting bored with those scenes and I just found myself flipping through them because I wanted to get back to the story and whatnot. And even Zane, the author herself, said that her stories aren't just that. She tells stories that are just very detailed and graphic about a lot of things. And that just has to be one of the things she wants to write in detail. I find it interesting how Zane says that she never really saw it as her writing erotica. It was just her simply writing stories that are very detailed. And I appreciate that because like I said, even though I was flipping through those scenes in Addicted, that isn't what kept me reading Addicted. What kept me reading Addicted is because I really did like the story that it was telling. And have you guys seen 90s black women fashion? Oh, that would look great animated for the most part. It would look really, really good. Like when I was reading this, I was like, I feel like this book really does need a redo, but I feel like it needs to be done the correct way. Like, let's actually sit here and flesh out all of these characters a lot more. While I do agree that there are certain scenes in this book that do not need to be animated and shown on screen, because there are certain shit up in here I'm just like, it's gonna be straight up.
If you read the book, the scene that I am ranting about right now is the nacho cheese scene. No, I'm sorry. That I was like very utterly disturbed reading that scene. I was like, nope.
I get kind of irritated because I'm like, we have so many of these animated shows, but barely any of them have like a black female protagonist that is grown. Like we have Michiko and Hachin, and then we have Heimani, and I was not the biggest fan of Heimani. I'm gonna be honest about that right there. We don't really have all that much shit to choose from, but also we need range when it comes to black women. Like I said, we have a lot of these shows that are starting to put more black women towards the front, but so much of them are like sci-fi and fantasy and horror and all that. And this is specifically me talking about animation. And while black women do matter in those spaces, and they should be there because they most definitely deserve a place there, because a lot of those stories usually are very white as hell to be exact, black women are also allowed to have coming of age stories just as well. We are allowed to have slice of life animated series for the most part. Remember that entire thing I was talking about respectability politics when it comes to animation and black girls? Black girls are not necessarily allowed to have their own thing unless they're like seen as exceptional or super special and whatnot. And I noticed that a lot of these shows that have black women in them and are actually treating their black women better, remember Western animation specifically, it's like something that is like supernatural and sci-fi and this and that and the third. And I'm like, I would love an animated series just about a black woman just being. And people were talking about, was it hair love, whatever, black love, whatever that shit was. It didn't necessarily like catch my attention, but range, please. That is just kind of like wholesome media right there, which we need. But baby, I want my unhinged animated black woman series. I really do. I desperately want that shit. And honestly, I don't know. I really, not me over here brainstorming ideas. I was like, should I make a comment? I don't know. Hopefully one day, I hope that Western animation, specifically Western animation for adults, because ooh, we get treated like ass over there for sure. I wish we can get more complex stories like Addicted and whatever. Like the white man be eating the fuck up, okay? If we can get a BoJack Horseman, black women can get animated Addicted, alright? Just throwing out ideas right there and whatnot, because I know people in this industry be lurking on YouTube all the time for ideas and such. I see you. Hey. But that's just like a little thought that I was having when I was going in and writing about all my frustrations that I had with that movie. And it all just came down to the fact that it can be animated. mainly because animation is a medium. And I think this, like, the entire world of me picturing it when I was reading it, it was this 90s story about black love and cheating and friendship and this and that and the third. And I was like, we don't really get stories like this in animation. I'd love to see that. But also remember, animation is not a genre, it's a medium. It's just another form of storytelling. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I just wanted to get on here and yap my mouth about Addicted. I wanted to write about this on my blog, but then again, I was like, no. And I don't know. I didn't want to make this like a Patreon only thing. And I was like, you know what? I barely see anybody talk about Addicted. But also one thing I gotta remember is that a lot of shit that we talk about, people be wanting people to make videos about it. It's just nobody actually gets on here and do it. So I was like, I know somebody got some thoughts and opinions about Addicted by Zane, and I'm gonna get on here and share it. I remember there were videos about the movie back in the day. I say back in the day when that shit was 2014. There were videos about the movie back then, but I don't know. I always tell myself to make the kind of content that I want to see, and I was like, I really am interested in an in-depth analysis about the book Addicted and talking about why the movie didn't work all that well and what not. So yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. Thank you guys. Oh shit. Sorry, my allergies been bad. But thank you guys so much for watching. You guys like this jacket? I made it myself. It is this akumatized bedazzled jacket that I've made. You guys can get it for purchase on my website at harem.com during Black Friday. I also, look at the hoodie, y'all. Look at the hoodie. So on one side, we have akumatized. Isn't that cute? Super cute. And then on the other side, we have butterflies. And then we have like the akumatized symbol right here. So yeah, this hoodie will be available for purchase on Black Friday weekend. If you guys are interested in purchasing, it would mean a lot to me. Completely optional, but yeah, make sure you stay on the lookout. I am gonna start posting like more product pictures and whatnot of everything that I have more promo and all of that shit coming. I just been going through a lot right now and I'm trying to get it together. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say for this. I spoke my piece about Addicted and I'm ready to move on. Thank you guys so much for watching. I also have a lot of bonnets and shit like that coming. Like I got a SpongeBob bonnet. I got a Hi Puffy Yumi bonnet. I got like a Bratz bonnet. I got a Nanami bonnet. You like Nanami? Comment down below. Okay? But yeah, I have a Nanami bonnet coming. I have so much shit coming for Black Friday. And yeah, I can't wait to see you guys there. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a good day, night, or whatever time of the day you're watching this. I'm just thankful you watched the video with the ads on. Alright, goodbye.